Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite provides you with all the resources you need to become a successful author. You can learn more about Authors Unite and join the free community at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today I have Charise Colbert with us. She is a life purpose coach. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. We'll dive in. The first question I have for you is, what's the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Okay. Well, when people hear this initially, they may wonder, why is it the best story? But for me, my best story lies in me being a survivor of domestic violence. Now, the experience itself wasn't pleasant, as anyone can imagine, and coming out of it was even more so work. But the part of my story for me is that it made me go inward and just really take an evaluation and stock of my life and how I was showing up in every area of my life, if you will. So I think with that, being able to find my purpose through my pain, I attribute my best part of my life thus far with a great message is being a survivor, being able to do that inward work, and ultimately for me making the decision to be better and not bitter. And I'm a much better person from that experience and my growth, and not allowing it to define me or change who I was at my core.
And what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that is within your expertise or industry?
So for me, personal development and growth is a very key living out our best lives and overall for a better world, if you will. So I think too much emphasis is placed on what someone else is doing. And we see it in the news, in the media, even in reality shows. And I think a lot of that is deflection. So when we can each individually take an inward look, I think the world will be a much better place because we're focused on ourselves and bettering ourselves and showing up better in the world and making better connections throughout the world.
And what is your best piece of overall business advice? So not necessarily industry specific.
Ooh, the best piece of advice I could say is stay the course. Be willing to see things through. Be willing to try new things. Be willing to let go of your preconceptions that you may have going into doing something. Be willing to change course if you need to. You're still staying the course. You're just trying a different route of getting there, if you will. But most importantly, I think be willing to be patient. Most success is achieved through delayed gratification. It's not instant and overnight. And I think a lot of times we become impatient because we want everything right now.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh, that younger, I would say listen to that small voice, particularly going and entering my 45th year on this earth. There's a lot of noise that we receive. You know, you have the opinions of your friends, your family, and whoever you may encounter, your employer, your co-workers, if you will. And then now you have social media added to the mix. So it is easy to drown out our own voice because there's so much noise. So take that time to declutter your mind, sit still, and listen to that voice because it will never steer you wrong. And that's just a way of getting connected back to you and what you truly want.
And in your opinion, what is the key to happiness?
Well, the key to happiness is looking inward. I think a lot of times we look outside of ourselves for happiness. Now, there's nothing wrong with finding someone who can enhance happiness, but you definitely want to distance yourself from those who diminish from it as well. But the real key is to find it inward. It's internal. And so when we're looking outside of ourselves, we find we're always hitting a wall because we haven't yet figured out how to be satisfied with ourselves at the core.
And what's the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
So the best book that I have read is Happy Women Live Better by Valerie Burton. And from the text, I learned a few things. One, to identify what happiness looks like for me. And two, to work to create that happy space on my own terms and within myself.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is your words have the power to create or the power to destroy. The choice is up to you. Now, I'm not sure who to attribute that to, but I really do believe that our words have power, and we get upset when someone is rude or mean to us, but a lot of times we speak negatively to ourselves. So I'm a firm believer in affirmations and just speaking to ourselves with gentleness and loving kindness. You know, at the end of the day, I think we're all doing the best that we can and strive to be a little bit better.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. The last question I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
People can find me online at goldenlifeliving.com or on Instagram at goldenlifeliving.
Perfect. Thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.